I'd now like to hand over to Arati Davis from LeadIT to basically moderate the next panel on energy and the Sweden-India Transition Partnership. Over to you, Arati.
So the next panel is to take what we've heard in the leadership and the inauguration down to the ground. What's actually happening? You've heard LeadIT mentioned a number of times, and you will hear it a number more times during the day. But let's talk to some of the stakeholders making this happen. On stage, I'd like to welcome Johanna Lissinger Peitz, Senior Advisor, Swedish Ministry of Climate and Enterprise, Ludvig Lindström, Senior Advisor, Swedish Energy Agency, Katarina Malaga, Professor in Sustainable Construction, Head of R&D and Business Development, RISE. Nisha Jayaram will join us online as Principal Counsellor, CII, Godrej Green Building Centre. Tania Irebo, Business Area Manager, Production Technology, Swerim. And then we have Dr. Chaturvedi, Joint Director, NCCBM, Government of India. Nisha, hi. Okay, so before we start, let's recap what we heard this morning and what you are all addressing. We heard the need for pilot projects. We heard the need for capacity building. We heard the need for finance. We heard the need for carbon market development and, of course, trust and partnership. So let's get down to business. Johanna, I want to start with you. Now, of course, from the Ministry of Environment and Enterprise, you're working with the ITP, the Industrial Transition Partnership, on the ground. Give us an understanding of what this is and what we can expect from the ITP, and of course, explain the acronym to the audience.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the question. And I will respond to your question, but I also just want to do a quick reflection 30 seconds back. LeadIT is now 5 years. When we started LeadIT, it was very much about just creating the momentum in the hard to abate, or what we said, impossible to abate sectors at the time. And I think just listening to today's discussions, it's actually evident that we have come a long way only this 5 years. And this is in sectors that is, long time investments, it takes time. I'm, as a personality, is an impatient person. But listening to today's discussion, and what I will now say for responding to your question, I do think that we can also, everyone who are engaging in this, can be quite proud of ourselves for what we have achieved. We have a very long way still to go, but this is at least, I think, a good start. So, as I said, when we started LeadIT, it was creating the momentum. It was, pushing the sectors of steel, cement, hard-to-abate sectors to start to move. We have now gone from that more general level and have, within the LeadIT, a section of industry transition partnerships, which is really established to move from, let's say, the more knowledge, awareness-raising level to how do we take that and create the change on the ground? And how can we organize ourselves to do that? And to me, in a way, it's also what has been addressing earlier. If we look at the decarbonization pathway and the challenge, it's about looking at, what's the technology gap, what's the finance gaps, what's the knowledge innovation gap, and how do we actually fill those with the primary aim to address the emission gap. And I think in a joint partnership, which LeadIT really is, and I just want to emphasize that, while I'm now speaking about the ITP, LeadIT, ITP is really a joint ownership, a joint project, Sweden-India. So we established this Industry Transition Hub with, I think it's 5 subgroups, steel, cement, innovation, finance, and carbon markets. And I know that there are many in the panel here and others who are more knowledgeable on each of this than I am, but with the aim, in a way, of creating that partnership of, what's the role of the public sector? How can we move this transition forward? What are the industry sectors and representatives we need to have on board? We have Swerim in the panel later. What are the, information, academia, science that we need to integrate, and how do we integrate those to create that transition on the ground. So I think right now we are in that phase where we have done, let's say, get to know each other matchmaking process, which also takes time. But that is a key kind of component, starting to identify, the pre-feasibility studies, then later on moving to the feasibility studies, etc. And the role of what I said on finance innovation is really to look at, how can those two tracks support what we ultimately want to achieve when it comes to transition in cement and steel sectors.
Johanna, just coming to the 5 working groups and reflecting on what we heard this morning. Steel, cement, of course, innovation, finance, and carbon markets, exactly what industry and government is asking for support with to facilitate and strengthen and catalyze outcomes. Now, LeadIT has been working for 5 years. Ludvig, the Energy Agency has been working with India for over 10 years. We talked a little bit today with Caroline about how this might have changed with the partnerships on the ground, but the Energy Agency is a strong supporter of the LeadIT ITP. How is this different from the work that you've done previously when you're working with India, for example, the India-Sweden Innovations Accelerator, and what are those characteristics that have changed?
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Hello. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Then we have to take a few steps back and look at what we did before. As you said, we've been working in India since 2009. So it's actually 15 years now. In the early years, it was a lot of collaborations on city level, contributing to city development plan in Visakhapatnam for waste to energy aspects. Working with the ministries, we established the MOU with MNRE and working with them on biogas projects. Later on, it was about Andaman Islands and replacing the diesel on the islands and instead introduce renewable systems. All this moved over to and developed to the program that we call the India-Sweden Innovations Accelerator, focusing on small-scale companies from Sweden with innovative solutions that could fit into the Indian development. And in that program, we were focusing on how to support these companies to find their partners in India. And doing that, when that was done, we had achieved our goal. So far, have been quite successful. Last time we counted, it was some 2 years ago. It was more than 250 collaboration projects. Majority of them are commercial. 10 companies have established their representation in the country, and so on and so on. With all this, we have developed a strong network, and of course, we also have understood a lot about the Indian heavy industry. And that was the starting point of how we could then move over to another perspective and work with the larger players. And then naturally also the perspective change. It's no longer enough with just have the Swedish actor established and handhold the company to establish themselves in India. Now we have to look beyond that. So what we're about to do now under the ITP is to work with industry from both countries and look at how can we actually do something, and then we enter into the climate objectives and actually bring the two industries together, especially under steel and cement, and try to find solutions for decarbonization. So that is the main difference, actually try to dig deeper into what can we do.
So, Ludvig, picking up from what you said, and of course coming back again to this morning, and we heard from industry in the panel in the morning saying, there is no question on why we do this. The question is, how do we do this? And of course, frameworks like LeadIT and the work that you're doing on the ITP become some of those mechanisms by which we can find our way in what is new, uncharted territory. Dr. Chaturvedi, I'd like to come to you next because, of course, you've now heard from the government of Sweden. I'd like to talk to you as the government of India, but also, of course, a member of the delegation that's here in Stockholm today and here for the week. Part of what we're doing is also trust building. Part of what we're doing is understanding and meeting one another to understand how we can work together in the future. You heard NCCBM mentioned a couple of times this morning in terms of expectations for joint R&D leading to commercial outcomes. What are your thoughts from what you heard this morning in terms of the role you could play, and of course what your expectations are from the week ahead? And please, of course, introduce yourself and NCCBM to the audience.
Thanks, Bharti, and good afternoon to all of you. And my greetings for this India-Sweden Innovation Day to all of you. At the same time, today is World Standard Day also. So what we are pursuing today here, it goes with that theme also. Now, coming back to Indian cement industry, I will just give a brief background about the status of Indian cement industry. It has got about 160 big cement plants, around 130 grinding units, and 60 mini cement plants running throughout the country. And the total installed capacity is to the tune of 640 million tons per annum. We, in terms of energy, are one of the best in the world. And when we talk about the thermal energy consumption levels, it is as low as 670 kcal per kg of clinker. And electrical energy consumptions are close to 64 kilowatt hour. So these figures are one of the best in the world. And the journey of Indian cement industry for this decarbonization process, I think it is perennial. It started from when the first cement plant was set up. However, systematically, they have taken up this issue almost 12 years back, when India launched its low-carbon technology roadmap. And incidentally, I was part of it. Some of my colleagues are also sitting over here. Now, 4 levers which they identified, which were to be implemented on short term, were how to reduce clinker factor, how to improve the energy efficiency, how to increase the uses of alternate fuels and alternate raw materials which are coming up, and how to use the low grade of heat to convert into waste heat recovery systems. Apart from that, certain new technologies were also highlighted as the last lever with a little bit of pessimism that maybe, may not be, it may happen. But it happened today. And it was mentioned that CCUS, that is carbon capture and storage. Today, what we see as the only solution for our short and mid terms. I do not call for long term, but definitely for short terms and mid terms, say in a span of next 20 or 25 years. This CCUS will play a very, very important role, without which net zero will not be possible. That's a viewpoint which has come up in India side. Now, we are here basically to see what are the best technologies which can be adopted in Indian conditions. Government of India is all out, taking all efforts. If you give me time, I can say one or two of them. Like they have launched a green hydrogen mission, almost in the year 2021, and with the sole purpose that let us have a cleaner alternative for the industrial operations. How we can have some alternative. So that has come up very well, and a few plants, 2-3 numbers, are already in the last stage of commercialization. But how it will be integrated to various hard-to-abate sectors like steel and cement, that need to be further fine-tuned. So availability of green hydrogen is not the only thing. How it will be integrated with the current level of operations in the hard-to-abate sectors will be a big challenge. Similarly, National Solar Mission was also launched with a view to harness the solar energies and in a way to reduce the dependency on the fossil fuels. That also is going on in a big way. And in the morning also, I think some business opportunities were discussed about the supply of or the creation of manufacturing hubs for these solar panels. So this is really a need of the hour. Beside that, Ministry of Power in India, they are also working out. They have incentivized how to reduce energy, to encourage the industry. They have created incentives and schemes such that you become enthusiastic and more motivated to take up energy efficiency measures with capital involvement also. And now this energy incentives are now converted back to carbon trading. So that framework for carbon trading, domestic framework for carbon trading in India, is being chalked out, and almost it is in the final stage. Maybe in a couple of months we will see that is in place for its utilization. So these are the few steps where government is already taking. Apart from that, various other schemes for automobile sectors and all that are already there. Like, for example, FAME, they say faster adaptation of manufacturing of hybrid and e-vehicles. So e-vehicles are applicable everywhere, not only in cement, steel, because it requires huge amount of transportation and put a lot of burden on the logistic. So government is also creating sector-wise, Indian government is also creating sector-wise specific logistic plans, which will be in tandem with the national logistic plans, so that to optimize the movement of transportation and to reduce the cost of transportation. You will be probably surprised to know that the logistic cost in India for cement sector is close to 25%. So all, and okay, money is one part, but it puts a lot of stress on the environment also. So if we optimize this, both will be taken care. So these are the few steps government is taking. We at NCB, National Council for Cement and Building Materials, are basically a research body conducting research in the area of our all projects, I can say, whatever we are pursuing research project, they are in one way or the other working for carbon capture and utilization or decarbonization. And we are working on various low carbon cements, and our regulation body, that is Bureau of Indian Standard, they have become very active and they have considered our proposals, and recently they have issued the standard for composite cement. They are in the final stage of issuing for Portland limestone cement, which is very common in Europe. So we were not having that standard earlier. Portland dolomite cement. Apart from that, on similar lines of that of EU standards, we will have multi-blended component cements, where we are slowly moving to away from prescriptive type of standards to performance-based standards, where you have more allowance for adding materials, and ultimate check is your quality performance. So that way we are going away from that, and these steps will definitely help to move from high carbon to low carbon type of cements. And as far as further to this is concerned, we are quite open, and we have already in discussion with ma'am, and she is visiting India next month, and we will utilize that opportunity to join hand together.
I think what you're giving me, Dr. Chaturvedi, is a very good framework that I'm going to ask Katarina to elaborate for us, because we have, of course, Johanna and Ludvig and now Dr. Chaturvedi setting up the framework of collaboration, what is possible, and of course the questions that are being asked and need answers. Part of why, of course, the delegation is here. Katarina, you are no stranger to the questions like this and the need for road mapping solutions. Now, we've done a lot of conversation this morning about what is the potential, that there's great opportunity, that we can actually make these changes happen in a year. Tell us what we should be aware of. What are the potential roadblocks? What should the collaboration keep in mind as it takes its step to answer the frameworks that have been put on the table?
Hello. Thank you very much for this question. How much time do I have to answer this? This is not an easy question, and I'm representing research in cement and concrete, and I've been in this business since 20 plus years, so I know a little bit about cement and concrete, and I'm also want to say that I'm really happy that I don't know everything, because I would be retired maybe from tomorrow. So I have a long way to go. And as we are seeing, the question actually what you are asking is not only a technical question. It's since 2019, I'm leading a Swedish project, which is an initiative called BETCRET. It was BETCRET 1, 2, and 3. And what does it mean? That we started to collaborate. I think this word was actually used many times today, that we need a little bit better collaboration culture. And what happened in 2018, that I've got actually funding from Vinnova to start the collaboration between the cement and concrete industry. What we did, we put in the beginning just 8 partners to discuss the common challenges. We have only one producer of cement in Sweden, so maybe this is not so tricky like for India, but in any cases we have many producers of concrete. And of course entrepreneurs and everybody is a competitor on this market. So what we did, we put them at the same table and we put the agendas. 2018, in Sweden, there were produced quite a lot of different types of roadmaps for net zero climate neutrality. Cement and concrete were one of those first ones. And what happened then, that they listed a number of challenges. I would say Sweden is not so much different from other countries, so we have quite similar challenges. And those are like 5. Energy efficiency in production of cement, new binders, new sources of the materials, decarbonization, or I would say carbonation, and of course the CCS, CCU. I would add some more, and it's also reusability, recycling, and totally different type of construction that is lasting more. So what we did, we increased this consortium for discussing the common problems and solving those problems up to almost 30 partners. And this is so dynamic that we, during this project, because we are actually finishing this in January next year, and we are a little bit worried that we don't have a continuation, formal continuation. But during those last years, what we did, we put quite a lot of results on the market. And we put also a totally different collaboration culture. So the transparency in this business is very important, I would say. And what happened is that we started to discuss the material flow, because everybody want to be climate neutral. But how do we actually prove that we are climate neutral? I could talk about the technical development, what we are actually approaching. So we are developing new SEMs, supplementary cementitious materials. We are looking into deep in carbonation processes of different materials. We are involving totally different unorthodox businesses like mining industry in supplying us the material that we can actually activate as SEMs. But this is not only this, we need to collaborate, because the cement in the end is actually used for concrete. So we need to collaborate over the different borders of the whole value chain. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, yes. But collaboration, transparency, exactly. And KPIs, we need to know what we are actually producing.
And to keep everyone involved. And
absolutely, and feel that they are owning the actually responsibility for contributing to the net zero in the end.
Some of the words that you said that I want to bring to Tania next, of course, is collaboration culture. That's great. And of course, transparency and ownership, because we've got a number of stakeholders here. And now you're talking, of course, within Sweden, we're talking cross-border. We're taking it one step to create a little bit more of kind of confusion potentially, but also opportunities for clarity. Now, Swerim was in India recently on the request of the Energy Agency and as part of this ITP collaboration, working with, where Katarina's talking about Rise's work with cement, you're working with steel. So tell us what you found on the ground and what you think are some of the same ways that Katarina's raised things to be aware of and to watch out for. What are kind of the areas for collaboration in the roadmap ahead as part of the ITP when it comes to the work that you're doing? And please introduce yourself and Swerim.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come here and join the discussion and join this work. Well, I will try to reflect on what Katarina said and first, but also just introduce myself. So I'm production manager at Swerim, and Swerim is a Swedish metals research institute. We have a long tradition of metallurgical and metallography research in tight collaboration with the Swedish industry and international industry. And I would dare to say that most of the technology development and investment that has been done in the Swedish industry has somehow passed by our research pilot testing or research labs. So we really work tightly with the Swedish industry in their development, in their pilot testing plants, pilot and industrialization processes. So collaboration, I will come back to that. And during this past, a little bit more than past year, we have been doing this study together then with the Swedish Energy Agency. We have done a lot of traveling to India and met a lot of partners and had a dialogue along with the Swedish industry as well, and trying to find the gaps, but also the overlaps between the Swedish and Indian industry then in the steel sector. And also trying to find some key actors for this, because this is also important. And I think in order to sort of answer the question of what are the opportunities and what are the collaboration, you have to understand the background and the gap first a little bit. I mean, it's very diverse if you look at the steel sector, the situation in Sweden and India. If I start with Sweden, we have been working very long. Sweden production has been kind of stable along the year. We have we have a scrap market that is well developed. We have a lot of collaboration within the industry. It's a really industrial symbiosis. Also, we have wind power and water power, so also which gives us opportunities then for renewable energy, of course. And also during, I would say, at least 50, 100 years back, we have really been improving the existing technology. And now the Swedish industry, I mean, the machines, everything need new investment, which gives the Sweden opportunity to make new technology steps. So that's what's happening in Sweden right now. We're really investing in new development within the Swedish industry. But that's also because we anyhow need to reinvest. That's the situation we are right now. And then if you look in India, which is also remarkable, it has been a remarkable growth. If you look in the past 20 years, the Indian steel sector has been growing by 7% per year. I think that's a 3-4 times growth over 20 years, which is quite remarkable. And what we look at, what type of technologies are already paid for investment, we see it's a lot of blast furnace and a lot of coal-based DRA technologies that are already sort of invested in. And this is really the main part of India right now. As well, in India there is a large domestic availability of ore and a large domestic availability of coal as well. However, it's a little bit of lower grade coal and lower grade iron, and coming back to that, that's also where we have opportunities that we can work with. And also in India, we expect that this will still, the growth has not, it will still continue, because if you calculate and estimate how this will grow, we see that there will be a lot of more investments. However, a lot of it has been done in the blast furnace technology and so on. So we have a quite diverse situation in Sweden and in India, but that's also, we have a lot of, we know technology provider who are looking into India, and some of them are already in India with their businesses. So we have a lot of opportunities to go there. But really coming back to, maybe we'll ask that again, the winning concept, and also something that we see is Sweden is a small country. We have quite a few industries, and we have a very tight collaboration between research actors, industry, and also we have a funding system, research funding system that's really established. So I think here also we can learn on how to go forward together.
Actually, you touched upon the follow-up question I wanted to ask both you and Katarina, because you present a starting kind of baseline for Sweden where you have well-developed scrap market, you said, of course, enabling a market when it comes to renewable energy, and a business kind of incentive to engage in this area. Tania, I want to ask you, and then Katarina, I want to come to you next. What, in your opinion, are the key drivers to make this happen when it comes to public-private finance? What has actually allowed this to develop in the way that it has? One could argue organically, but to create where we are today, which is a thriving market environment.
So I should start. Well, I think for Sweden, if
for
that's
Sweden,
the question,
to give us where we are today.
I mean, it's really first of all, as I mentioned, it's really a funding system that's based on tight collaboration, and also even though we also have some competitive companies, yes. But a lot of it has been in a collaborative manner. So, I mean, we really, as research actors, we can really help industry in going forward. So I think, just coming back to that, that's really a system approach where sort of funding system and the system between industry and academic and research can work together. That's a short answer.
And we talk a lot about, of course, the triple helix collaboration, bringing industry together with academia and to find applied technologies that are win-win. And that's something critical that we can bring, of course, in the dialogues that we're having with our cross-border collaborators. Katarina.
I would say probably the same as you are saying. So it's the funding system is actually essential to formalize the collaboration between the different partners, and close collaboration with research institutes which are actually existing to help the industry to flourish. So this is what we are doing in Sweden. Actually, we are working for all clients or all industries, and we are trying to do the best for our, of course, national market. So the funding, what is actually doing this is just putting those actors around the same problem that we are actually feeling that we are responsible for the same good. So I would say it's our collaboration culture is smearing and paving the way actually to good results. So it's otherwise we are not having this impact on the market if we are doing just without this existing of different type of funding agencies like you, Ludvig, are supporting the new calls, for example, which are coming out. So it's without the possibilities to gather together in common calls, it's really difficult to put this collaboration to work. So, yeah.
So I want to come, Katarina, with that comment to Nisha, who's joining us online. I will continue asking the question with the assumption you can hear me, Nisha. There you are, great. So, Nisha, we know each other, we go a long way back. Of course, you've been working with CII on the Energy Agency's work with India for at least the last 10 years, the Green Building Center in Hyderabad. What I want to talk to you about, Nisha, of course, because you have a vantage point with more than 3,000, 4,000 industry members, working, of course, in this conversation with cement and steel. But what you heard Katarina and Tania talk about are the enablers that allow us to get to a point where a thriving business marketplace can be achieved. That is, of course, frameworks and financing, working with industry partners, government and academia. From your perspective, in the last 10 years, has this collaboration increased and the potential of what we can do with objectives like what we've set out for the ITP? Please introduce yourself, Nisha, and of course CII GBC before you answer.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. And Arati, thank you for having CII as part of this event. We're very glad to be here. Like you mentioned, we've been partnering with the Swedish Energy Agency for about 12 years now on the India-Sweden Innovations Accelerator Program, which has seen excellent uptake in India. The Confederation of Indian Industry is India's largest and oldest industry association. In fact, not 4,000 members, it's more than double that. It's about 9,000 members right now, which gives us access to almost all of Indian industry. So CII also acts as a developmental agency, working with the government, supporting the growth of India, not just through business, but also through a variety of other means. And that is one of the reasons why at the Green Business Center here in Hyderabad, we work with industry and governments on the topic of climate change mitigation. And through that, of course, we've been working very closely with India's cement sector as well across energy efficiency, benchmarking, uptake of renewable energy, and so on and so forth. Dr. Chaturvedi, of course, has already mentioned how the Indian cement industry is performing, and we've worked with NCCBM as well in the past. Now, if you look at some of the things that you have mentioned, particularly in terms of how industry-academia partnership has been moving, we have definitely seen improvements over the last many years. There have been a lot of work. There has been a lot of work happening in institutions of national repute, like, for example, the Indian Institutes of Technology, a lot of technology labs where students, postgraduate students and professors jointly working on innovations, which has also basically seen a lot of interest from industry. India also has a set of, government-supported labs, the CSIR labs, which also work on a number of innovations, which are also gradually seeing the light of day in terms of uptake from industry. However, we also think that, from CIR's perspective, this is something that significantly needs to increase this academia-industry collaboration, because there's a lot that can come out of it, like was being discussed on stage, that academia is actually coming out with a lot of ideas which could have a lot of benefits for industry. Unfortunately, a large majority of it, kind of gets shelved in the form of reports and doesn't really see the light of day by industry through industry uptake. While that is changing, that does need a lot of support, potentially from both the government side as well as from the industry side in terms of supporting many of these studies. Like I mentioned, there are changes happening, but a lot more needs to be done. And hopefully, with programs like LeadIT, where we are able to bring in international technologies and see how Indian startups as well as academic startups from India can sort of, support this entire activity, bringing that together. We are hopeful that it will create more opportunities for both, innovation in terms of innovation in academic institutions as well as industry benefiting from this entire process.
Nisha, I'm going to follow up with you, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. In the beginning of today's session, we talked about it's the 11th year of the India-Sweden Innovation Day. So we took a moment to look back at where we were 11 years ago, both in India and in Sweden. And of course, when it comes to India, there has been at least a doubling of every indicator that we look at. What, from your perspective, is the reason for this? I mean, in terms of, you talk about systems, and there's a lot more that we can do, but a lot of collaboration, like you touch upon, is increasing. The appreciation for what we call the triple helix, industry, academia, applied research with government, is increasing. So, Dr. Chaturvedi, I'd like to come to you next after I ask Nisha. What, from your perspective, is one of the key, or two of the key factors that has enabled this doubling, at least doubling, of the key indicators that we looked at this morning?
Sure. So, Arati, like I said earlier, we work very closely with industry on a number of things, including climate change mitigation activities. So I would say that there are two things perhaps that are driving this change. The first is increasing awareness among industry. They understand that their actions, just like anywhere else. I mean, this is not specific to India, but the sheer activity of manufacturing or producing something is creating a lot of impact on the environment, be it in terms of resource procurement, be it in terms of the energy that goes into manufacturing, or be it in terms of the logistics and end of mile delivery and management of the product at end of life. So across all of these areas, industry is creating impacts, and industry has realized that it is responsible for these impacts. And so, there's a clear intent to do a lot of work or to change those impacts. The second is also that having known, that it is creating impacts and becoming aware of it, industry is also clearly committing, to a lot of action. And what this means is that they are able to allocate finance, internal or debt and other forms of finance, to taking action on this, which is basically meaning that they're able to invest in more technologies. They are looking at the latest available technologies. So gone are the days where you just continued using what you had 10 years ago. These days, industries proactively looking to see how they can utilize the latest technologies to reduce their impact on the environment. Of course, naturally, a lot of this also creates an impact of, either on the top line or bottom line. And that is the nature of business anywhere. Then nothing is going to be done without that. But I think what we need to stress on, or what we need to really consider, is that a lot of work is happening in terms of identifying what are the best technologies out there that industry can benefit from, and further actually implementing that technology despite the cost that goes into it. So in my opinion and CI's opinion, these are the two big things, which have led to sort of this doubling.
So Nisha, you're talking about stepping up of industry being one of the key drivers for the change in the last 10 to 11 years. And of course, utilizing best practice and understanding what's available internationally, and a willingness to pay from industry to actually integrate these technologies. Dr. Chaturvedi, what would be your response to that? What are the key drivers that have taken us to where we were, 15% internet integration, 15 gigawatts actually of installed renewable energy capacity, to where we are today, over 75% and 175 gigawatts?
Yeah. You see...
Big news.
It's okay?
Yes, I think a little bit closer.
See,
I think a little bit closer.
The power lies with the young minds. So we have to involve more and more young people to this process of transition. And that is possible. One way is the startups. We have to encourage, and we have to create this impression in the minds of young minds that you can do this, and this is also a challenging area. Now, when I say this, I am specifically referring to the cement, concrete, and building materials. Maybe almost 1 year back, ma'am, we were not finding many startups who are working in the field of cement, concrete, and building materials, because they feel it is neglected, or it is not so useful, not so promising, not so and so. Now, after that, there is a transformation, and the figure mentioned about the startup in India, India startup figures is close to 1.5 lakhs. 150,000 startups are registered with the DPIIT, and they are working in many fields. We were quite skeptical about their role in cement, building materials, and construction sector. In order to promote that, we at our institute have created a cell incubation center, and so far 10 people have registered for that, including people having background in AI. So they are willing to work in that. So in my view, if you want to double, triple, or whatever multiple factor you want to apply, you have to give enough importance and motivation to the young mind. That is one. Secondly, ma'am, I feel that this LeadIT should take a bigger role and should work like a one-stop solution for all the problems, all the issues related to technology development, transfer between India and Sweden. Thank you.
Okay, Ludvig, I'm going to come back to you, because you've heard now from a number of the speakers on the panel, from Katarina, of course, and Tania, going a little bit deeper in terms of what to be aware of. We said in the beginning 5 working groups: cement, steel, carbon markets, finance, innovation. Dr. Chaturvedi has raised the point of startups, new tech, new minds on the India scale. What are you expecting to see from the 5 working groups between now and, of course, next year? And where's the role, from what Dr. Chaturvedi is saying, for startups and innovation to really be driven in terms of the technology solutions that we see?
Thank you. Well, talking about startups, that is actually could be exemplified with our approach under the cement sector and that track. Right now we have a call open for in Sweden for and we're looking for Swedish technologies, and since we have one big player, we foresee this will be startups. We have one good example actually, Saltex, that have this collaboration together with the Indian Dalmia. Just a few weeks ago they got financial support from us for that collaboration. So that is one example, and we hope that it will be more such examples coming out of the call. Next step, once we have identified them from the Swedish side, together with the NCCBM and CII, we will work to try to bring the actors together for them to define whatever project they can do together. And that is where the difficult part starts, because as we have seen many times before, most often the problem is not the technology. That is the easy part. The challenge will be related to understanding incentives and drivers, try to understand nature-given conditions, also for us and the our Indian counterpart, to see how we can bring our instruments together to support the process. And that could be illustrated in these 5 pillars, work packages you can call it, the importance to bring the 5 pillars together, not working silo. This time we have to bring it all together, otherwise it won't work.
So now the work starts. So the call that you mentioned, of course, is open to startups. There's a willingness to engage with what have been a little bit disruptive players in the market who are not playing by the rules, in fact, throwing the rule book out. But that's something that needs to be harnessed, as Dr. Chaturvedi says, to really see what can be the potential for the future. I want to ask Katarina and Tania to give you one sentence of warning and what to be aware of as you do this next step, which is a little bit more on the ground, rolling your sleeves up to try and find the ways in which your stakeholders can work together. Tania, I'm going to come to you first. Katarina, I'm going to come to you second.
Well, I think just to stress a little bit what Ludvig says, that really to consider the conditions that we have in India and in Sweden, as I mentioned, are quite separate, but really consider those. But then there is a lot to do. I mean, not only brand new technologies and disruptive technologies, but there is a lot to do with the technologies that are already in place. Blast furnace operations, you can do a lot there to do an ore beneficiation. You can work with biocoal production, and we have a lot of knowledge and tradition in this. And also carbon capture, just you mentioned a few. So I think look at finding the right partners and incentives that they have, and looking at the conditions that we have. I mean, that's the prerequisite for this.
And as you mentioned, Tania, of course, there's a lot of asset lock-in, because these are purchased assets running today, not to discount that and to understand the bottom line when it comes to how industry will take this forward. Katarina.
I would like to stress the available technology that is not used today, and where everybody is talking about CCS and CCU, but I would say everybody is counting on CCS. It's going to take time. Why are we not starting to use the available technology and implement it, and cutting down the CO2 emission by 50% already today when we can? It's just, I would say, just do it.
I'm not going to paraphrase that, because I think, of course, the message is clear. The last 2 comments I want to ask Johanna and Nisha. So we're on stage today talking about how far we've come with LeadIT, for example, in the last 5 years. Of course, LeadIT 2.0, about 1 year old, and we have a delegation in Sweden looking at how to take things forward on the ground. Johanna, I'm going to come to you, and then Nisha, I want to end with you. Where do you want to be in 12 months?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And I think 12 months from now is, in a way, our goal of COP30. That's what we set up when we launched the ITP in Dubai last year. And I think also, having listening to Ludvig and everyone who is here, is actually part of the ITP. So it's about being at the stage where we can look at, a set of pilot projects and start to identify, which of those could we take to the next step, and that ensure that we have, through what we have been talking here today, through the scalability, through the partnerships, through, and I want to emphasize this, create the right enabling conditions in both Sweden and India to engage on this, and also to keep that level of trust, which I think is also, key to any success like this. And trust for me comes to managing expectations. You should, aim for the star, but you also have to have the same expectations. You have to build on, the similarities, but you also have to recognize the differences and the barriers. So I think we have spent, from Dubai up to now, we have kind of done that level, and then now we are really aiming on, how do we then take the step of, starting to sailing the ship to where we want to be, not just up COP30, but maybe also 5 years from now. Thank you.
I think what you say, Johanna, is worth kind of reflecting on before I come to Nisha, and that's recognizing difference and managing expectations, because that baseline assumption setting will be critical on how you move forward together and how stakeholders can be involved and own what we do together. Nisha.
I'm here.
We can hear you. Go for it.
So for us, if you look at the timing of ITP, this is a very opportune time for India in terms of, setting the path for the future, right? So, for example, if you look at, say, the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to probably add about 1/3 of today's cement capacity. We're probably going to add a similar amount of steel capacity. And these are two large sectors. And that's not even considering the kind of growth that we are expecting in the rest of industry in India, right? So from that perspective, we think that ITP is, a very opportune activity with the potential to really bring in a lot of interesting and useful innovations, which could potentially, really add a lot of value to Indian industry's growth in terms of sustainability. And like I mentioned earlier, Indian industry is also very interested in looking at technologies, and therefore we feel that, ITP could bring in significant successes, significant technologies to India. Therefore, it all sort of seems to, fit in together. I don't know if that was premeditated, but it's sort of fitting in together in terms of time, in terms of sectors, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much, Nisha. And of course, I think where we need to be in 5 years is to start with high ambitions here, because we were facing lock-in. We're facing decisions that are going to be taken today that will be deployed over the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. Now, for the audience in the room and online, we're going to continue talking LeadIT in the next session to really dig down to the details of the delegation that is here and that Dr. Chaturvedi is a part of, to see, okay, you've heard the nice mutually admiration society talking about how we can work well together. But what are we really doing? Stay tuned, because that's coming next. In the meantime, please join me in giving our panel a warm round of applause.